But it's some things that you're not understanding.
But make me understand, Ray.
Yeah, baby, when I walk out that door, I walk out alone in the dark. I'm trying to do something that ain't nobody ever done in music and business. But I can't do it if I'm alone everywhere I go. I don't want to be alone here, B. Not in my own home.
Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of Hollywood Gold. I'm your host, Daniela Taplin-Lundberg, and I'm here with Vanessa.
Hello.
Today, we're going to jump right into it. We're doing a second episode with Taylor Hackford, and we're going to discuss Ray, the Ray Charles story, which is like such an epic tale of perseverance. And, you know, this is one of those movies that when you rewatch, you realize what a fan of the music you are, because I think Taylor, as a filmmaker, is such a tremendous fan of jazz and of Ray Charles generally. And so his story is so long and intricate and incredible, and you can't even believe that the movie finally got made. And so I'm so excited to dive in.
Me too. This is going to be a good one.
Oh, let's get going.
Let's do it.
Taylor Hackford, you are just such a legend. I'm so thrilled to be talking to you again. There's so many of your movies that we could talk about, but today we've chosen to talk about Ray. So, Taylor, what is your first memory of this incredible film?
I had a company called New Visions, in Los Angeles. I was looking at developing a number of I love music. It's been part of my life.
Yeah.
You know, with Officer and Gentleman won the Academy Award for Best Song and Against All Odds for Best Song.
Yeah.
So, in these instances, you realize that there is a wonderful, compelling story because music stories usually are working class stories.
Oh, I love that. Mm-hmm.
And, the people that kind of come out of nowhere, the Richie Valens or the Ray Charleses, they don't come from Wall Street. They don't come from Park Avenue. They don't come from Rodeo Drive.
Yes.
They come from very working class situations, and their raw talent, their brilliance, and then their ability to harness that talent and make it indelible, I think are compelling stories. I'm not interested in usually the back part of that where they're rich and famous and unhappy because of that. I want the part of the story which is the building up, how they got there.
Yeah.
It's almost a fairy tale, but it's a lot of hard work and a lot of difficulty and a lot of prejudice and a lot of things that they have to fight through. And I think that makes it dramatic.
Oh, I just got the chills, Taylor. Yes.
So I had a friend and a partner, Joel Sill, who had been head of music at Paramount and at Warner Brothers.
Okay.
So he was a very astute music person. And he said, listen, I got a couple of guys who are going to come in. And they're going to come in with Ray Charles Jr. These are two music managers. And they came in and I met Ray Charles Jr. And, he's a very bright, interesting young man who basically said, my father was one of the more difficult people ever in my life. But he was a genius.
Yep.
And I want to have him commemorated on film. I think his story could be fantastic. Now, it hit me perfectly because everybody has a kind of, if you love music, you've got someone in your life as an artist. Some people it was Sinatra, this indelible figure. Some people it was Elvis. And although I love Sinatra and Elvis, my person was Ray Charles. This soulful, unbelievably dynamic voice that just said everything to me, that told stories. It hit me the first time I heard it. I said, who is that? And that was a kid. I was in junior high school. And then went on from there to the point where everything that Ray Charles did, I would get and listen to. So when Ray Charles Jr. came in, it was like he was preaching to the converted.
Fate.
And
totally.
I said, yes, I think this would be a great thing to develop. But Ray Charles Jr. said, well, that's wonderful, Taylor, but I must tell you in advance, my father is not easy. And I said, well, neither am I. But little did I know I didn't hold a candle to Ray Charles.
Oh, my God. I can't wait to hear. Okay.
So he said, my father has given me the right to pursue this, but of course, no one is going to do my father's story without his permission and complicity.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to meet him. And I went, God, a chance to meet Ray Charles.
Incredible.
He set up an appointment down at Ray Charles Enterprises, which is on Washington Boulevard in LA between Crenshaw and Western. It's a really terrific, very professional organization. Ray was one of the best businessmen ever.
Right.
So I go down there and I meet all the people, and everybody's very cordial. I mean, it's run like a very together business. And we go down to Mr. Charles. Everybody refers to Ray as Mr. Charles.
Okay.
That isn't by accident. That is the fact of life. So Ray Jr. takes me down to an office. I go in, and it's chock-a-block full of furniture and awards and a conference table and all. It's a big office.
Yeah.
No windows at all.
Oh, interesting.
There's a lamp, a very dim lamp on, kind of one of those little desk lamps that looks, shines down on the desk.
Yeah.
That was the only light in the room. And Ray Jr. said, listen, you got to meet my father alone. He wants to meet you alone. He wants to get, the measure of the man. And I said, fine. So I'm sitting there waiting, and all of a sudden the door opens and Ray Charles walks in. And, Daniela, between me and the door were about 5 or 6, let's call them obstacles.
Okay.
Chairs, tables, different, I said the room was chock full of furniture.
Yeah.
And Ray walks in, walks around 5 different things, walks up to me, puts his hand out and says, Taylor, I'm Ray Charles.
Oh my God. Like, how did he know you were right there?
I went, wait a minute. This is weird because I've heard all my entire life Ray Charles is blind.
Right.
Clearly he's not blind. He probably is sight impaired, but there's no way that anybody could walk blind through that room. And then he walks past me and walks around about 4 or 5 more obstacles, gets to his desk, sits down, and says, did you see the Dodgers last night? Did you see the Dodgers last night? I couldn't believe that they won it in the 9th inning. So I'm now saying, wow, this is one of the biggest hoaxes that has ever been done, because everybody thinks Ray Charles is blind, but he's not blind. He couldn't be.
Oh my God.
And what I found out later, of course, is that he was blind. He had both eyes taken out.
Oh.
This is one of the most talented, most incredibly brilliant men I've ever met. And this moment was this life-changing thing for me.
Oh my God.
Because I was meeting somebody that I truly, truly loved their art, their music.
Yeah.
But now I'm meeting the man, and the man himself is just beyond belief. And at that moment, I absolutely knew that I wanted to make this film. It didn't turn out to be an easy path.
Okay.
I think for producers that listen to this podcast, they all know, or they're going to find out, that if you come up with an idea that you want to actualize, the word you're going to hear most is no. And you're going to go for months, years, decades, in my instance, without getting it done. And the only way that you will continue and actually get it done is by perseverance and a refusal to take no for an answer. And I know that sounds trite, but it is the truth.
Okay, so tell me your first step. Talk to me about the journey.
I thought that this would be a slam dunk. I mean, I've done musical films. I had already produced La Bamba, which was a hit.
Yep.
And basically, I thought, well, it's Ray Charles. Compelling story.
Yeah.
There's a larger Black audience, and La Bamba was a hit. So I should be able to go to studios and sell this.
What year are we talking about when you first met Ray? Are we talking 90s?
Yeah. You know what? It took me 15 years.
Yeah.
And so I made the film in 2004. So it was probably 1989, 1990.
Wow.
So I went to all the studios and all kind of went, yeah, we know Ray Charles, but what's the audience?
So you went and pitched this around, like
I went to every studio. Every single studio.
To have them pay for you to get it written and
Yeah, to basically develop it. The idea that let's find a screenwriter.
Yep.
So I figured that this was going to be, my little company had a little financing, but it wasn't going to be, by the way, I didn't see this as a huge budgeted film, but I felt it was a epic story of one of the great American artists and probably needed that. So I went there and every studio executive, and I saw the heads of studios. Sorry, nobody's going to want to see this movie. Ray Charles is old. Kids go to movies about young people, won't know who Ray Charles is. He's not rock and roll. I mean, I just got every line you
Even
could
with
imagine.
La Bamba in your sort of recent history, they were just not willing to go there. This notion that what's old could be new again. That was just no one was interested. Crazy. Okay.
I mean, the reason that La Bamba got made was that I had a very good relationship with Guy McElwain, who was the head of Columbia. And Guy grew up in California. He played minor league baseball. He had heard La Bamba, loved it. It was one of those things where I was going to make the film. I made the film for $3 million. So it wasn't a big commitment by a studio. It was a personal relationship, and Guy let me do it.
Okay.
This, with Ray Charles, it was going to be a bigger film, but, the Black audience is bigger. It shouldn't be, because there's many Latinos in this country, far outnumbering Blacks, but Blacks go to the movies. So I thought this is a great opportunity for a studio to kind of get in.
Yeah.
No. And I kept going back and no. Now you have to understand, I went back to Ray Charles every year because Ray Charles, you negotiate a deal, and it was very difficult with Ray Charles because he was one of the best businessmen ever.
You communicated that well in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, he was fantastic, but making the deal with him was tough. So, like anything, you get an option, and that option's going to run out. And I had to go back every year and sit down with Ray and say, Ray, I feel terrible because I've been out there and I've really been trying to get this film made. And, no one will bite. I'm passionate. I'm passionate about it. I believe it's an incredible story. But so far, no one has agreed. And I thought, because Ray's tough, he could have said, well, I'll go with someone else.
Sure.
And I know other people had come to him.
Right.
And finally, years go by, 5 years, 10 years.
Oh, God.
Ray every time went, Taylor, things happen when they're ready to happen. And the thing that was so great was our relationship. He did not take the rights away from me. I mean, we would sit and talk. And I talked about my background, completely different than his. I mean, Ray Charles grew up in a little village in Georgia. He didn't wear shoes until he was 7 years old. He was born sighted and then probably had juvenile glaucoma. But after he watched his brother die in front of his eyes, drown in front of his eyes, 9 months later, he was blind. I mean, this is Greek tragedy.
Totally.
It's fantastic. So how we were able to relate, I don't know. I just was transparent and honest with him, and we got along. And he never took the rights away.
Wow.
Well, my partner in my company, whose name's Stuart Benjamin, he was a lawyer. He went to work for a new Hollywood production company. It was called Crusader. Then it was called Bristol Bay. But it was financed by a billionaire named Phil Anschutz. And this is interesting.
Oh, man, this is good.
All of a sudden, Stuart's there, and he's a lawyer for this company. And he calls me and he says, Phil Anschutz loves Ray Charles. And I go, well, so do we all. But he said, no, he really loves Ray Charles and he would like to make this movie. Pardon me, it's a production company. We already know the studios are tough. He goes, no. Phil Anschutz has the money and the wherewithal to make the movie and then shop it around. And it was an interesting situation. And we're about 12 years in.
Okay. Do you even have a script at this point, Taylor, or is it just still a concept?
No, I had sat down early on and wrote a treatment.
Okay.
And it was like a 34-page treatment with all the scenes in it to tell the story that I had heard from Ray. And of course, I'd read all the books. There were books Ray liked and there were books that Ray didn't like. But it didn't matter. I think that there was some great work that was done literary-wise about Ray Charles.
Okay.
And I thought it was a pretty detailed treatment. It had a little dialogue, but not much, but mostly scene.
Okay.
And the evolution of the story and where I wanted to take it.
Mm.
So finally, at this point, Phil Anshu said he was interested. I felt at this point, because as the evolution from when I'd started, the whole concept of diversity, the whole concept of what you do, I had made it a point when I did La Bamba to get a Chicano writer, Luis Valdez. You're dealing with America, but you're dealing with a particular ethos of America. In this instance, the Mexican-American life. And Luis Valdez had established his bona fides by being a great dramatist. And I had to convince him to do this because he said, this is just a pop star. I said, no. Richie Valens really represents everything that you've ever been writing about breaking through the barriers of culture in America. So I did that. And then I fought to get Luis to be able to direct it. I produced because I thought it was important to have the true perspective. All right. I was going to direct Ray. I was always going to because I felt it strongly. But I felt we needed a black writer.
Okay.
Stewart actually gave me a script. It was written by a guy named Jimmy White, who was an interesting guy. He was originally from Kentucky, had been in the service, had come and worked as a grip in Hollywood. Became a writer. And I thought he was a good writer. And he had a gift for dialogue. It was not you and I talking as white people. It was black people talking, but he didn't pander to them. It was good, intelligent writing in the right idiom. Jimmy and I met. I showed him the treatment, and basically, we worked together. He wrote the script. I had written the treatment, but I did develop with him on a daily basis as he evolved. So we wrote the script, and it was a big script. It's a big life. And when we got it done, we went out with that script again because Anshu, being a very good businessman, went out saying, here's a script, and I'll finance half the movie.
Okay.
I mean, Phil Anshu was offering an incredible deal. I'll finance half the movie, and I'll finance half of the marketing.
Wow. The P&A.
So, for a studio, they can get this film for half price.
And they can get their fees. And that seems like a good deal.
It was a very good deal. Nobody was interested. Not one person.
So I'm thinking we go with your middle name, Charles. As in Ray Charles.
I don't care what you call me, man. Just as long as my name is on the record.
Well, we gonna toast to that.
You know what, man? I knew that Atlantic Records was big in the swing time, man. You guys do good music. I dig Atlantic.
You could have fooled me.
Well, I got to keep my eye on you city boys. Down home, we call it country done.
I did some casting. And again, up till this point, I'd never cast the movie because I didn't have a script. But Phil allowed me to cast the movie. I had a little office. And, I saw a few people, but nobody really, and listen, by this time I'd known Ray Charles for 10 years. I have Ray Charles sitting on my shoulder. I know him. And Jamie Foxx got sent in, and Jamie Foxx was an irreverent comedian.
In Living Color. Genius.
And he was brilliant. But dramatically, he hadn't really established yet. He did Booty Call as a feature film. And so I met him. And in the process, I said, listen, this is going to be a very big job for anyone who takes this role because Ray Charles is not just a great singer. He's a brilliant jazz piano player. And I'm going to have to find somebody who I can use their hands because I've got to play the exact notes that Ray Charles did because I'm going to use his masters.
Yes.
I'm going to use Ray Charles's voice because I know you may be a good singer. And Jamie said, I started as a singer.
Yeah.
I said, no intent to insult you, but you ain't no Ray Charles. Nobody is. All right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use his voice. And then I'm going to have to find somebody who can play jazz piano. And then I'll have to work out cinematic tricks to go from the hands up to the actor's face, et cetera, et cetera. And Jamie said, well, you don't have to do that with me. I play the piano.
Oh, my God.
Again, I said, I play the piano and, I grew up playing the piano, but we ain't no Ray Charles. He said, listen, I started playing piano when I was 3.5. I played in my gospel church in Texas. I kept playing. I had a band. I went to university on a piano scholarship.
No.
I may be a comedian, but I went to university. And I said, oh, really? Like funk and jazz? And so he said, no, classical.
How did I not know that?
Well, people don't. So because
God.
Jamie Foxx is, so I sat there and going, you know what? That says to me, I mean, you went by playing Mozart and Beethoven to university and won a scholarship. He said, yes, mine was Mozart. And I'm looking at Jamie Foxx, the irreverent, what did he do?
What was his character?
The character, the female.
Oh, she had the big butt. It was so good. I can't remember.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I'm going, wow. Wait, you know what this said? Intelligence.
Yeah.
Incredible depth. Professionalism.
Yes.
I cast him right there.
Oh my God.
I just knew.
Did you see him play, or you just were like, anyone who gets a scholarship for classical piano and has this ability for...
There was a piano in the outer office. He sat down and played.
Okay.
He was really good. But it did say to me about Jamie was, I knew he could act in front of a camera. He was a comedian. Comedians could be very, very good dramatic actors. I mean, many of them are. And at the same time, I kind of said, this man is deep. He's incredibly talented. He fought through all these things and he found his way up being a comedian, but there's a lot of depth there. So, and I cast him. But, Jamie Foxx with this script still did not warm the hearts of studios, even though Phil Andrews is financing half the budget and half the marketing. And the marketing can be as big as the budget.
By the way, Jamie just wasn't as big of a star as he is now. We can both agree on that, right? He was still sort of an unknown.
I don't think he wasn't a movie star at all.
Did you consider casting a musician, like a singer? Did you ever consider that? Or were you always going for an actor who could play a musician?
This is my experience. There are incredibly talented musicians. A lot of musicians wanted to be actors. David Bowie is incredibly talented, and he acted a bit, but he was no actor. And there are many, many musicians that have tried to make that move.
Yeah.
And I needed somebody who could embody Ray Charles, and I didn't have to worry about him being a musician. I have his voice, I have his piano, I have great masters. I don't need a musician. I do kind of need a musician in that they've got to be able to lip sync, they've got to feel the music. And in this instance, Jamie ended up by knowing how to play the piano. And, I made that choice. It was an intuitive choice. I'd never have made a choice like that before in my life.
Wow.
I wanted to read actors. I wanted to test them. I wanted to do this or that. I didn't test Jamie Foxx. I hired him. Also, I had him come in because his head shape, this is very perfunctory, but his head shape matched Ray Charles's.
Interesting.
I said, well, he's a, irreverent comedian. This may not work, but at least he could look like Ray Charles.
Right.
And of course, I lucked into an amazing situation.
Ray must have had an opinion about the person playing himself.
This is the important thing.
Okay.
I'd had now a dozen years with Ray Charles. We had a very good relationship. And I knew him pretty well. And let me tell you, he was a complicated.
Okay.
He was. So I call Ray and I say, listen, I found an actor. I mean, after all this time, and we've got, I think this company will make the film. I'd like to cast him, but I want you to meet him. He says, no, Taylor, you got the eyes, And I knew that was bullshit. There's no way that I was ever going to cast somebody to play Ray Charles without having Ray vet him.
Yeah.
So I set up a meeting down at Ray Charles Enterprises for Jamie and Ray. And when I came in, I said, set up a couple of pianos. And so there were two electric pianos sitting side by side. And I thought, Ray's going to come in and feel the man, but he also wants to understand he's a musician too.
Yeah.
So Ray immediately finds himself to the piano, starts playing. Jamie finds himself there. They meet. It's cool. And then Ray starts playing things and Jamie starts playing things. Played a little, gospel. No problem, no problem. They played a little funk, no problem. And then Ray starts playing Straight No Chaser by Thelonious Monk. Now, I don't know whether you know about Thelonious Monk, but nothing Monk did made sense. It just was the most brilliant piano playing ever. And it was fantastic. Well, Jamie stopped. I thought, I wonder what's going on. He was flowing with Ray, everything's cool.
Yeah.
He said, no, I don't play jazz. I've never played jazz.
Oh God. Oh God.
And I went, because before I said, you take things for granted. Jamie's went to university on a piano scholarship. He played classical. He played gospel, he told me. And I knew he played funk because he played it for me. Obviously, he knew jazz. No, he'd never learned jazz.
Oh my gosh.
So now I'm in a difficult situation because I know Ray Charles. He doesn't give up. He's going to test this person. And he said, no, it goes like this. And he starts playing it. And Jamie tries to get it. And he can't get it. And the rhythm of it, the style, da 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 da. It's Thelonious Monk. And people who know him will know what I'm talking about.
Open source AI is available to all, not just the few. Meta's open source is free to use, enabling startups like Nanome to innovate. Here's CEO Steve McCloskey.
With Meta's free open source AI model Llama, we built an AI tool that allows us to collaborate with other scientists to discover treatments for diseases.
Learn how others are building with Meta's free open source AI at ai.meta.com/open.
So it goes on for about a minute, and this is now starting to get embarrassing because Ray is pushing Jamie and Jamie can't get it.
Oh, God.
And it goes for 2 minutes. And 2 minutes is a long time when you're being embarrassed.
Lifetime. Yep.
And I'm going, this is going to blow up in my fucking face.
Oh my God.
Because I know Ray. Ray is so tough. So at a certain point, Ray said, stop. Now listen, Jamie, it's right under your fingers. You're all upset about this. It's right under your fingers. Listen to me. And he starts playing this very complicated Monk's figure, but slowly. And Jamie follows. And then he does a little bit more, and then Jamie follows. And then he speeds it up, and Jamie does it. And then at a certain point, Ray goes, he's got it. He's got it. And that point, what Ray Charles did when he was happy and wanted, he would hug himself. Ray Charles, to show his excitement, would hug himself, and he says to me, this is it. He's the one. He's the guy.
Oh my God, I'm crying. That's unbelievable.
Right at this moment, he anointed Jamie.
Yeah.
And I tell you, if people could levitate, Jamie would have been 6 feet off the ground because what he had, and it showed me another thing. It showed me about Jamie.
Yeah.
Because a lot of Hollywood egotistical actors or directors or anyone, if they're being humiliated, God damn it, don't you know who I am? And they step out of the room. That's what I was afraid of. Jamie hung in there. What he showed me, and mostly what he showed Ray Charles, that he was a man. And he wasn't going to run for the hills. And he stayed there. And of course, Ray then hugged him. And I mean, it was like watching this kind of folding him into the family.
And Taylor, had you been greenlit yet? Like as far as
that's the other thing. Let's go back a little bit. Phil Anschutz, and I'll tell you a couple of things about him.
I mean, I know of him as a very right-wing conservative guy.
This is the thing about, he's a born-again Christian. He's a very conservative Christian. And when this is before, I'm sorry to circle back.
No, it's okay.
Two things interesting with the script.
Okay.
When we got done with the script, I knew I had to pass it by Ray Charles before I pass it by anybody else. And so I had to translate it into Braille. Ray was a voracious reader in Braille. So I, on Friday, sent it to him. And on Monday, he called. And he said, so Taylor, I read the script. It's pretty good. I thought, because we really did we told the real story.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of difficult things that make Ray Charles look like the person he is, which is a difficult son of a bitch.
Yeah.
I mean, a great artist.
Yes.
Now, what is to say that great artists aren't, difficult?
Totally.
Genius are difficult. So I had it, and I thought they were going to be like, God, Ray's going to have 30, 40 comments. Why are we doing this? And I don't want to. This is a chance for me to leave the project.
Yeah.
Ray comes back and says, there's just two things in the script that I think have to be changed. I'm going, two things? Oh, God. I said, what are they? He said, well, in the early bit when my brother dies, when I first went down to this, there was a feed store. There was a general store that at night was a honky tonk. And little Ray went down one time, and the guy was playing the piano, and he sat and learned. He just was immediately in love with it.
Okay.
I didn't think that was very dramatic. And I said, so his mother tries to get him to play. He doesn't want to do it. And when his brother dies, he now goes and starts to play the piano.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Dramatic license. It was my idea.
Sure.
Ray said, that's not the way it was, Taylor. The moment I heard the piano, I wanted to be there, long before George died.
Okay.
And I said, all right, Ray, that's something that was my idea. I thought it would be a cool, dramatic moment. But, no problem. What's the other one? He said, well, you got me in the script turning Margie Hendricks.
Regina King. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Lead backup singer. And
she was so awesome. Her voice, insane.
Yeah. Regina King played it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have me turning her on to heroin. He said, I didn't.
Mm.
And now I've researched a lot. I go, come on, Ray.
Yeah. How's that possible?
I got to tell you something. Mm-hmm. I will change things to rep it. I mean, everybody knows that you were a junkie.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that Margie died of heroin, and she started doing heroin, when she was in your band, and then died later.
Yeah.
And he goes, listen, motherfucker, if I tell you, you know how many things are in this script that I should be pissed about? Am I pissed about them? No, because they're the truth. Wow. But I'm telling you, I never turned Margie Hendricks on to junk.
Oh my
and that's the truth. I can live with the truth, Taylor, but I will not put in something that's not true.
Oh my God. That's a moment, Taylor.
Oh, there's a million moments with Ray Charles.
Oh my God.
Now we call...
this is such a good story, Taylor. This is such a good story.
Well, we now call Ray Charles saxophone player.
Oh, David Newman.
Yeah, David Fathead Newman.
Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, Jimmy White called David Fathead Newman in Texas.
Okay.
And this was Ray's junkie buddy. They'd shoot up together. They knew.
Yes.
And Ray says that he didn't turn Margie on to heroin. And David Fathead Newman says, no, he didn't. He wouldn't let her do it.
Oh, wow.
So clearly, Ray was, as I always knew him to be.
Yep.
Straight from the hip, brilliant and strong. So I made those two changes. Ray Charles now endorses the script.
Oh my God.
Sent it to Phil Anschutz. And Phil Anschutz comes back and says, we can't make this movie. I'm going, what? I mean, I showed him my treatment.
Yeah.
We followed the treatment.
Yeah.
Well, you can't make this movie because it has all this profanity in it.
Oh.
And I said, profanity? I mean, Ray Charles was a junkie. He screwed a different woman every night. And I got to tell the truth. All this, and he says, you can't use fuck, you can't use motherfucker, you can't use any of these words. So I basically say, okay, I quit. I said, I can't make a movie about someone and then tell a lie. And I want to do realism.
So you really quit. You really quit.
I quit.
It's time for the main attraction. The innovator of soul, the genius himself, Ray Charles.
So they went out and looked at other directors.
No way. Taylor, after 12 years.
Yes. But I was very close to Ahmet Ertegun.
Okay.
Ahmet Ertegun was the greatest record executive in America.
Totally.
He founded Atlantic Records. He had signed Ray Charles originally, and Ray Charles's great records were on Atlantic.
Mm.
I got a call from Ahmet saying, Taylor, I hear you quit this film. Yeah. Are you crazy? I said, Ahmet, they won't let me say, the language has got to be true. This is what is this? It's about people that are real, and they're jazz musicians. And Ahmet said, you know what? I'm going to have Ray call you, because they talked all the time. Ahmed and Ray. Is I'm gonna have Ray call you. So Ray now calls me and says, Taylor, what the hell is this? I stayed with you for 12 years and you walk off the project?
Oh my God.
And I said, Ray, I want to tell the real story. And they will not let me have profanity. I'm with you every day. You say motherfucker every day. He said, Taylor, let me tell you something. I never said fuck in the 50s, ever. We didn't say it then. I say it now. But you're not talking about making a film about me now. You finally found, after 12 years, and I stuck with you, a guy who will make this movie?
Oh my God.
Get your ass back there, and that's what happened. So it was interesting to have that process. And then we revised the script, and Phil Anschutz called back and said, you still can't use it because it's still got profanity. I said, what profanity? He said, you got shit in there.
Oh God.
I said, wait a minute. Shit is, you call shit profanity? Yes.
Oh man.
And I tried to reason. I said, what if we only use shit when it relates to heroin? He said, I don't care about drugs because Ray Charles, he cleaned up. He actually revised his way of life.
Yeah.
And, I want to tell that story. But I said, shit. And I was almost going to quit again. And Phil Anschutz now said an interesting thing. He said, Taylor, you're an artist and you're rebelling against censorship. You think you're the first artist that has ever been censored? Do you look at thousands of years of art that's hanging in the Louvre and the Prado? You don't think those artists were, and did they still create the greatest art that mankind has ever known?
Oh, wow.
Are you telling me you can't do that? And he was right. He was right. So I said, this was like an amazing thing. I then said to Phil, I said, all right, Phil, you're right. You're right. And you put it in the right way. And I feel that we'll do this. But I never want to hear from you again, artistically.
Okay.
I will make this a PG-13 movie. And within that, you know the story. But I don't want to have any interference from this point on. And he said, fair enough. And that was it. And I never, until the movie was finished, I mean, it was just an interesting evolution, this whole thing.
What a journey to the starting gate. Unbelievable.
And then at a certain point, budget-wise, because no studio ever stepped up, ever. So now Phil Anschutz had to make up his mind, was he going to pay for this movie? And I think the movie was about 40. And he said, that's too much for a movie like this. So Jamie, we're getting ready. I location scouted.
Is he cash flowing a little bit?
He cash flowed enough for me to, he paid for the script. He paid for Jimmy to write the script. And he paid for me to location scout. But they had not really spent any money, real money. And now he pulls the plug, doesn't give us the green light.
Because you don't have a studio to release.
That was one thing. But he was just saying, if I'm going to finance this myself, it's got to be less. And so I then went back with Jimmy White and we revised the script a little bit, made it a little smaller, put in a lot of flashbacks instead of trying to do it linearly, and made it a cheaper movie. It's still a substantial movie. The movie ended up costing $32 million, and Phil Anschutz financed it 100% without a distributor.
That's a big swing. Do you know if he had made foreign sales? Do you know if he had anything to cover him? Oh my God.
Nothing.
My God.
He's a billionaire. And by the way, he owned the biggest theater chain in America.
Yeah, like Regal. Mm-hmm.
He owned Regal Cinemas. So he could have put the film in there himself.
Sure.
He's a very smart, big guy.
Right.
But the fact is, he wrote a check, he cash flowed the movie, he spent $32 million of his own money. So it was a dream scenario, because if it had been done at his studio, all those junior executives would have come in, oh, you can't say this, and we can't do that, and we can't do this, and we can't do that. They would have homogenized the film. It would have been embarrassing.
So, Taylor, you get to day one of shoot. Was the shoot itself kind of a breeze compared to the prep and the making of?
Yeah, I mean, I decided to shoot in New Orleans. We did shoot for about 4 days in L.A., because there were certain, Ray had a house in L.A. There were things that happened in L.A. that I wanted to shoot exteriors for. But we shot in New Orleans because, I had another life in New Orleans, and then Brandon Tartikoff, a voice from, the name from the past, who had
Sure.
run NBC.
Yeah.
His daughter had been injured, and there was a rehabilitation doctor in New Orleans who he took his daughter to, and he and his wife moved to New Orleans. And we were the only two kind of Hollywood people there. At the same time, they asked us to consult because there were some people in Louisiana who wanted to create a tax incentive.
Right.
And Brandon and I helped write that, and we got involved in it. And then, time passed. And then right when I was doing Ray, I got a call from the head of UNO, the University of New Orleans, saying, hey, we did it. I kind of, about 7 or 8 years before Brandon and I did it. He says, we did what you set up. We got the incentive. So Ray was the first film to use the tax incentive.
No way.
Louisiana. And it was a 25% rebate on 100% of the budget.
That's fantastic.
It allowed us to make the film. All these things, they all kind of fell out of the sky.
Unbelievable.
So we shot in the summer in New Orleans. Anybody who's been in New Orleans in the summer knows that it's hell. It's very hot. It's very humid. And at the same time, I knew the town. I knew the town really well because I'd had a second house there.
Sure.
And, it worked great for us. It really, really worked great. And in terms of the casting,
phenomenal cast, Taylor. I have to tell you.
Yeah, we cast fantastic people. I mean, you look at, Kerry Washington. It was her first big role.
Oh, she killed it too. I mean, I was so impressed.
Regina King. Anjanou Ellis.
Beyond those three women killed it. And I feel like you sort of found them on the way up. It's incredible casting.
There was 4 women, actually. Ray Charles basically said to you, if he was being honest with you, the most important person in my life was my mother. She still is. She died when she was 29, but she set me up. And basically, I knew Ray cared more about casting his mother than he did about Jamie. And that was big. And we couldn't find anybody because, Black actors in the business, they're sophisticated. They've done this, they've done that. And they're not interested. Ray Charles was country. Ray Charles was as brilliant a man as I've ever met. If Ray Charles wanted to sound like Prince Charles, King Charles, he could do it. Didn't want to. He stayed country the whole time. So when people heard him, they went, oh, it's country hick. No, he was really smart. And so therefore, what I wanted to do was make sure that what we could do is speak. And Jimmy White was extremely good. Jimmy White was a smart guy. And he was really good at doing dialogue that was true to the ethos, true to the patois. And at the same time, we made the characters smart. So, none of those characters are dumb, but they may speak like they're from the country.
Oh, my God. Right.
So, Bokeem Woodbine is playing, David Fathead Newman, and you got great people. So anyway, we could not find Aretha, Ray's mother, because, actresses would come in. And, they said, I'll play this, but they were offended by trying to play a woman who was uneducated, working class, that took in laundry and make it, the words were Jimmy's in the script, but I knew they were right. And Ray had read it. Ray read the script and said, that's right. So I was casting kids. We had to find kids for this film, to play the young Ray and the young George. And I was in Atlanta and I had the regional casting director. All of a sudden he comes in, he says, I know we're casting kids, but this woman just walked across the street. She's appearing across the street in a dance show at the Alliance Theater. The Alliance Theater is a very good theater in Atlanta. She heard we were making Ray Charles and she came in and said, I've got to be in this movie. I've got to be in this movie.
Oh my God.
I looked at her and he knew. Mark Fincannon, his name is.
Okay.
So Mark said, she looked right. And I thought, what the hell? I gave her the script. I gave her the scenes. And she came back and she read for me. And I think she's good.
Yeah.
So this woman came in and I had a camera there. And I explained this. And she looked right. She was from Tuskegee, Alabama. Her father was the police chief of Tuskegee. Wow. She had gone to Europe. She was a dancer. She wasn't an actress. She was a dancer. But she had this quality. She
Yeah.
had this strength and forthright quality that I took. So I explained what the thing was. I mean, she read a little bit. She was fine for reading. But I said, this comes down to, this is a woman who has 2 children. She's raising them alone. She's dirt poor. She takes in a wash, and she's got a tub set up in the yard. And she leaves. She says to Ray, watch your little brother George, who was 4. And I'm going in to get more laundry to wash. She goes in the house. In the process, George gets in the tub. He's jumping around. He falls in. Ray stands there, and this is what really happened. I have it in the movie. Ray was paralyzed. He couldn't move. He just watched, and George drowned. I said, so you come out, and you see George, and you go over and you pick him up, and you realize he's dead, and then you turn and you lash out at Ray. Why didn't you do something? How could you just stand there? That's the scene. And that's the scene I put in the script. And now I turn the camera on and I said, okay, and I'd like you to do that scene. She does it, and I'm telling you, I'm crying behind the camera. She was so brilliant. And the thing that was interesting about that scene, and I'm going to go back a little bit, Ray never gave me anything. I'd researched, I talked with him. He would never deny anything, but he wasn't effusive. Well, I did this, I did that. He made me work for it.
Yeah.
At a certain point, I came to the realization that Ray went blind at 9 months after George. He always referred to George as being brilliant, much smarter than me, more than. And that moment of the sole surviving brother, it has an effect on people's lives. Remember Elvis?
Yeah.
Richard Nixon. All these people live and think that they're not what they could have been, and they take responsibility for the death of that sibling. And I asked Ray if I was going to make that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to say it. I think it's like Greek tragedy. Because believe me, if Ray, you heard it before, if this is wrong, Ray would say bullshit. Ray just sat there and says, you go ahead and do what you think's right.
Wow.
It was saying that this man, who was almost 90 years old, was agreeing with me, and that this was the motivator for his entire life. This woman, Sharon Warren, walked off the street, listened to what I said, and did it. Now, I go back to Hollywood. I'm carrying this videotape. Nancy Klopper and Sidney McCurdy, who were the casting directors, and Jamie Foxx, and I said, I've got this woman. She's going to be Aretha. Oh yeah, right. We've got the best Black actresses in the United States, and you go to Atlanta and take cancer.
Yeah.
And they're really cynical. And Jamie is there going, well, Taylor, if you have it, you think, let me see. I put the tape on, and they all cried.
Oh my God, Taylor.
All of them in the room.
Oh my God.
And Jamie went, that's it. Don't think any further. That definitely the person. Pardon me. That's Aretha. And so when I finished the movie, and Ray was really sick. I'd gone through this 14 years with him. I wanted to, the only way he's going to see the movie is to hear the movie.
Yep.
I wanted to come to, Sony, where we're mixing, hear it in a big room with the best sound.
Yeah. He
was so sick he couldn't leave. He said, Taylor, the only way I can see the film is to come here, meaning to Ray Charles Enterprises. So I go down there. I've got a video cassette. He's got this old television, Motorola, that was 10 years old. It was terrible. And I'm going, God, Ray's going to see the movie. He comes up. He's sitting next to the monitor, looking straight out. He's not going to look at the monitor, right?
Sure.
And he goes, and the first sequence up, he's going to see Aretha. He's going to hear Aretha. And I'm going, oh, shit, this is the test.
This is the test.
He's there. He hears her. There's a scene. He starts slapping his leg, which is another thing he'd do when he really was excited and pleased. That's it. That's my mama.
Oh, my God.
It was so cool to have that happen because I had so invested in this man. He was very important to me, and he was brilliant.
Yeah.
But he felt the same thing that we did.
Yeah.
And Sharon Warren was brilliant in the movie, all 4 of those women. One of the big problems that I had with that film You as a producer need to make a choice about what you do when it comes to Academy time. Jamie, there was no question. And Jamie had it. And Jamie won every award. Jamie and my wife, Helen Mirren, for the Queen, I think are the only people who won every single award.
Oh my God.
Every award that was up for Best Actor or Best Actress, they won. But I knew I had 4 actresses, any one of them. I love Regina. I love Carrie. I love Anjanou. All of them are great. And Sharon Warren was spectacular. And I kind of chart this up to weakness because all of those actresses gave me their all. They were all brilliant in the film. And I decided that I would not choose one to promote. And you know what? They all split the vote. None of them got nominated. To this day, I said, God, I should have made a choice.
Any one of them. I totally agree. I mean, any one of them.
Now listen, if you want to do something to make your mama proud, promise me. Promise me you'll never let nobody turn you into no cripple. You won't become no charity case and you stand on your own 2 feet.
I promise.
I love you, baby. I'm so proud of you.
Well, you know what they say, we got a little bit more work to do.
That was the last song in the book, right?
Fathead, it ain't never the last song. Now, band, follow me, do what I do, say what I say. This is how we're gonna do
it. Now, I'm talking a lot here as a director, but remember, producing-wise, you find the material, you develop the material, number one. Number two, musically, I decided that we were going to use Ray Charles's voice to make that work. And then there was one little section of the film where, because Ray Charles, when he first started, was a Nat King Cole sound-alike. And in the movie, up in Washington State, in Seattle, that's Jamie's voice.
Oh, interesting.
The rest of it, all the stuff is Ray Charles. So all that process of putting the film together in New Orleans, taking the rebate, and then, we came back, and again, the film speaks for itself. I mean, we went to certain places. In Louisiana, there was an old plantation that had slave quarters still. I mean, and they were wooden, and we shot, one of the things that, Pavel Edelman was my cinematographer, and we decided that we would shoot the early part of the film in full color, saturated color. Steve Altman, who is my production designer, Robert Altman's son, went to Georgia and got red earth. Ray could describe red earth of Georgia. He brought the earth in, spread through this little community. And then as the film progressed, Pavel started to desaturate the color as Ray went blind.
Yeah.
So you start with a full, vibrant thing when the boy is young and sees the world. And then in terms of style, this is all directorial, but I started the film with not moving the camera. It rooted in the soil of Georgia, all that stuff. It didn't move at all. And then when Ray started to lose his sight, I started to do more, when George died, started to move the camera, but on a dolly. And then when Ray started taking heroin, I went to handheld the whole rest of the movie. Psychologically, I think the audience felt the unmooring of Ray Charles.
I just want to understand the prosthetics over Jamie's eyes when he was shooting the film. I read that he literally had them sort of sealed shut, and so during the day he couldn't see. Is that true?
I had them sealed shut.
Oh, is that right?
Well, it's the director's choice.
Sure.
This is the thing. When I would spend time with Ray Charles, he finally said to me, I'm alone in the dark. I've learned to deal with it. I've got a family. I can seduce women. I can do all of these things, but I'm alone in the dark.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. And you can say to actors, close your eyes and you can feel your...
Yes.
But you can open them at any moment. And so I suggested to Jamie that we seal his eye. And also I knew when Ray takes off his glasses, he hardly ever took off his glasses, but he did for me. And you could see his eyes were sewed shut. He had them taken out.
Wow.
anyway, I said, I think there's got to be a moment. And we did it with he and Della in bed together, Carrie, Washington, where he takes his glasses off and she looks at his eyes. It's a very, very lovely moment.
Yeah.
Because and a vulnerability. Ray's not a vulnerable guy. He was being vulnerable in front of this woman that he loved. So I told Jamie that, and we had done prosthetics so that he could do that scene. And I said, I think you should, just as a test, you should leave the prosthetics on while we're rehearsing. You know, our rehearsal day, we put them on in the morning and keep it on. And he went through unbelievable. He went through panic. He went through disorientation and all the things that, in fact, people that are blind when they become blind do. But there was one instance that was so amazing. Jamie and I were having lunch, and we were in this big cafeteria. And, you know, when there's a lot of people and there's hard walls and everyone is talking, it's a din. It's a din of people. And I had to lean across the table to hear him and vice versa. So we're talking, and he goes, stop tapping that pencil. And I go, Jamie, I'm not tapping. Yes, you are. You're tapping that pencil. And I can't hear what you're saying. And it was like really weird. And so I look around, and there are people next to us all talking. And I look 20 feet away. On the other side of the room is a woman tapping a pencil on the table.
Weird.
I can't really hear it. But there's so much noise going on in this room. Jamie, by having his eyes covered, it accentuates your hearing. You know, Ray Charles said, I hear with my ears. And at that moment, Jamie was perceiving, he was cutting out all of that noise and focusing in on that 20 feet away, a woman banging on the table with a pencil.
What a genius moment. What a genius moment.
Unbelievable. And at that moment, I realized this was working.
And did he buck against it, Taylor?
Oh, he was the greatest. I mean, I'm telling you, when Jamie and I said we were partners, and when it came down to it, he did what he had to. When we were shooting, you know, we had long days in horrible hot weather, and we would shoot, and then we were shooting the next day. We were shooting performance. Jamie would have to go home at 11 at night and start practicing, because when I shot the piano, I was playing back Ray Charles playing the piano. Jamie had to hit the right keys.
Oh my God.
Jamie had to hit the right keys. He had to go. Practice. He had to rehearse and rehearse and rehearse so that when I wanted to go from the keys up to his face, they would be accurate, because he, as a piano player, and also knowing, although Ray Charles would never see it, knew that Ray was the kind of person, it had to be accurate. So working with Jamie was, I mean, let me tell you, he was the best.
He deserves that Oscar, man. That's incredible. Yeah.
Now, there was no cutting corners. And second of all, we knew each other well. He was truly brilliant.
Talk to me now about actually getting the film into theaters, because I know that you guys didn't have a studio. How did you make that happen?
Bill Anschutz paid for the whole film, and we went out and tested it. We tested it in Kansas City for an all-black audience and for a mixed audience. It scored really well, because I needed to know. And the film, by the way, 2.5 hours long. And I screen and I test that way. I want to know, but I knew it played well. So now I go and I show it again. I go around to all the studios, every single one. And I show the finished film. And they go, ooh, really good film. No, we're not going to take it. Well, why not? Black films don't sell foreign. We need a foreign film. I said, well, Phil Anschutz is going to pay for half the distribution and marketing. Now, Warner Brothers passed, Fox passed, you know, Disney obviously passed. Everybody passed. And, you know, Phil Anschutz is now thinking that he may have to just put it in theaters himself. And then my agent, Fred Spector. The great Fred Spector. He, you know, had been colleagues with Ron Meyer, who had been head of CAA. And now Ron Meyer was running Universal. He called Ron and said, listen, I want to send this film. It's really good. You know, these are things you don't know. Right. So Ron screened the film at his house in the Bel Air Circuit on a Saturday night. And on Monday, he called Fred after he'd seen the film and said, we'll take it. We'll distribute it.
No way.
But who knew that what really, when Ron Meyer was, the Jewish community in Los Angeles used to be in East Los Angeles. Boyle Heights, the main street used to be called Brooklyn Avenue. It's now called Cesar Chavez Boulevard. Ron Meyer grew up in East Los Angeles, and he was in the Marines. But when he was in junior high school, he was, like me, a nut for Ray Charles. And he took two girls to the Palladium and snuck them in to see Ray Charles when he was in the 7th grade.
Oh, my God.
So Ray Charles was to him what he was to me, the guy, the person. And now he's heading the studio, and he said, I'm going to distribute this movie.
Oh, my God.
So, he's the chairman. Now, Stacy Shear and Scott Stuber were the president and the vice president of production.
Okay.
And they looked at it. I got a call from Stuber saying, well, this is way too long. We're cutting it down. And I got, oh, fuck, here it comes, because this is way too long. It just won't hold.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you know what? I think you should test the movie. I tested it. Test the movie. So Mark Schmugger was the head of distribution. And they set up a screening in Marina del Rey in a 500-seat theater. And it was supposed to start at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Stacy and Scott were coming from the studio.
Okay.
They obviously, in typical studio executive, they had these meetings. They left late. There was a lot of traffic, and they didn't show. Now, you fill up theater up, and it's a warm night, 500 people, and they sit there.
Oh, God.
They were an hour late.
No, stop.
They were an hour late getting to the theater. I know that this is going to be the screening based on the fact that on this screening, they're going to give me notes to cut the movie down. I don't think I'm telling my story, and I think it works. And I've also screened it. They said, oh, yeah, you cook the books. I said, I use national research, the same people you use. So the audience was unruly. They were pissed. You're keeping us in our seats. It was terrible. Finally, Stacy and Scott show up. The lights go down. The movie starts. And during credits, people start to laugh and enjoy the movie. It plays very well. And then there was sustained and continuing applause at the end of the 2.5 hours. When in reality, they've now been there for almost 5.5 because they were in their seats even before, and then they sat there for an hour. But anyway, Schmugger says, let's not, I looked at a few cards and people liked it. He said, let's not make a decision tonight or do anything. Let's not even discuss. Let's wait until tomorrow and let's see what the statistics are. So we got home, and I thought, oh, fuck, they're going to just cook the books, and Stuber is going to give me a list of things to cut. The next day, I get a call from Schmugger saying, Taylor, it was a good screening last night. I said, yeah, I felt it. He said, it was the second highest screening Universal's ever received on a film.
No way.
97.5 with 2 boxes.
Oh.
He says, I don't think we touched the film. I think we leave it like it is. All we can do is fuck it up. And then Universal set about, and they were very smart. And this is the other thing that I think is a really interesting thing that we did. After we did Ray, Tom Cruise made a movie, and Michael Mann directed it, called Collateral. And they cast Jamie in a dramatic. Jamie had not done dramatic roles.
Yeah.
One of the things I saw when I screened the movie, and that audiences there, especially Black people, when, the first time Ray Charles appears in the movie as the adult Ray Charles, he's got a ill-fitting suit and he's got dark glasses on and a straw hat. He's a hick, and he has a straw suitcase.
Yeah.
And the moment that he appears on screen, doesn't say anything, everybody starts laughing because it's Jamie Foxx. And I was very concerned about that.
Right.
Oh, they cast, and Jamie's going to do Collateral with Michael Mann and Tom Cruise. And we're ready. We're ready to come out. But in Universal, we said, you know what? Let's let Collateral come out first. It's a Tom Cruise movie. And Jamie Foxx is playing a real dramatic role. And if we let that come out first, we don't ever have to say that Jamie Foxx is a dramatic actor. So we waited. In the meantime, we screened all over the United States in different places. And the film started to build a word of mouth.
Mm.
And, we finally opened, and Universal handled it really, really beautifully. And it did very well.
But I think the thing that I was struck with most is the film is so uplifting despite Ray's struggle with drugs and all these things that you really deal with honestly. But I think what I really came away with is that you are such a true lover of music and the musical sequences. And those sequences were like concerts. They were like every time a piece came on, you gave it its due. It wasn't just montage sequence. It was like a proper moment. Was that something you were really focused on?
By the way, before we go on, the two managers that came in with Ray Charles Jr. were Mark Hartley and Larry Fitzgerald.
Okay.
I don't like to leave people out. I always like to.
So sweet.
They were partners with Ray Charles Jr.
Okay.
When he first came in.
Okay.
All right. So there's a sequence in the film that I really want to tell about Ray starting to take heroin. It's an emotional moment. It's a very big moment because he was a heroin addict for 15 years. So it happens when he goes to Seattle, and he finally goes to LA, and he's a little fish in a big pond, and he goes out on tour with Lowell Fulsom.
Okay.
And Lowell Fulsom is a blues guy. Every Day I Have the Blues, terrific. And I had, by the way, casting Wendell Pierce. I wanted Wendell Pierce to play his manager.
So cool.
And Chris Thomas King played who is a great blues guitarist, actually played Lowell Fulsom, and he playing the guitar and actually singing. So, it had authenticity. And Wendell, who's a friend, is a fantastic actor. So anyway, there's a moment where Ray's alone on the road. He doesn't know anybody. He's playing in a band of people. He they consider to be a cripple.
Mm-hmm.
He's lonely, so you really feel he's lost. He's alive when he's playing on stage, but aside from that, he's lost. He's nowhere. He's alone in the dark, and no one's helping him.
Yeah.
So there's a sequence in which they start playing in this Texas club, and Lowell Fulsom's singing and Ray's playing the piano. And all the band's going to go out on the town. There's some girls there.
Yes,
and they go out on the town with the girls. They're going to go out and have a good time. And Ray's alone, and he's sitting at the piano, and he goes, "Hey, boys, where you going? Can I come?" And this guy, he goes, "Let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't want no cripple with us." And of course, Ray's ears, he hears it. They leave. He's sitting at the piano, and he starts playing a very sad thing, okay? And that becomes the intro to another scene, which is Every Day I Have the Blues.
Mm.
So what happens is you see Ray isolated. He's playing. He's now, after the gig, he tries to make friends. He tries to go out. They really insult him.
Yeah.
He's alone. He plays this very contemplative thing. And then the next day, you see Lowell Fulsom. That's the intro to Every Day I Have the Blues, which is a beautiful, slow, blues song. After that, he goes in and he shoots heroin because he's going to dead end.
Yes.
So I have to get, this is a creation. This Chris Thomas King is recording Every Day I Have the Blues with a band that we put together. And Ray has done the arrangements. They're going to come into the studio and do it. But before that happens, and I'm there, and Ray, I wanted to get somebody who could arrange these records, because Ray's records, because he was Atlantic and Tom Dowd was recording them, were good enough, even in the 50s, to use in the film. Brilliant.
Wow.
But other things, the stuff that Lowell Fulsom did, were not very good.
Okay.
So I'm re-recording them. And I asked Ray, can you let me know somebody who can arrange them? And Ray goes, well, shit, I arranged them originally. Yeah, I'll do it. So I thought, wow, amazing. Ray would do this.
Yeah.
So now, before the musicians show up in Ray's studio to lay these tracks down that I'm going to use in the film, I decide that I want this moment at the piano, where Ray sits alone at the piano. He's just been insulted. He's been rejected. He's sitting alone, and he does this very contemplative figure on the piano. that turns into the intro to Every Day I Have the Blues. So I'm telling you about musical storytelling.
Yeah.
I had all this is all conceived. This isn't by accident. I knew it. So I have Ray Charles say, Ray, before the musicians come, would you lay this out for me? And he said, yeah. So I tell him what I want. He sits at the piano, he's roll tape. He does this very showy, very kind of, performance-like thing. And he says, okay, stop. How's that? And I go, well, Ray, it wasn't right. It was wrong. Honestly, it was like very performy. I want something internal. I want something contemplative. Now, I had a good relationship with Ray. I've talked about what this man meant to me.
Yeah.
He's sitting there, and now I want to tell you who Ray Charles was. And he looks and he says, listen, motherfucker, I played that son of a bitch exactly like you described it. Now, you better get your shit together, because if you don't, I'm going to get my ass up and I'm going to walk out of here. I'm doing you a favor.
Oh my gosh, Taylor.
Now, I saw the rattlesnake. This is the way Ray Charles is with musicians.
Wow.
And when you're confronted with this, with somebody you respect, somebody you need, it was like everything went internal.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought about it for a moment. I mean, all this probably took place in less than a minute. Now I came back and I described exactly what I wanted in probably 25% of the words that I originally used. Ray said, okay, cool, roll tape. He did it, and it was unbelievable. He said, okay, stop, how's that? I said, Ray, it was perfect. It was exactly right. He said, you know what? Just say what you mean.
Wow.
And we will have no problems. And it was the best lesson for a director ever.
Taylor Hackford, best directorial note ending ever. Thank you so much. That was so fun. I feel like I learned so much. That was an incredible, incredible story. You are wonderful. Thank you for doing this with me again.
All right, Daniela, thanks much.
Taylor Hackford can tell a tale, man.
Yeah.
And his memory, I mean, that movie won Jamie Foxx the Academy Award 20 years ago. And that's really when Jamie Foxx burst onto the scene. I was such a tremendous fan of his from In Living Color. This is before your time, Vanessa, but like he was truly, truly a genius. He was so funny.
I mean, it's such an unbelievable performance, and rewatching the movie, you can just see, I mean, he pretty much transforms. It feels like a very different version of Jamie Foxx that I think at that point no one had really ever seen. And even still looking back on it, we don't really see Jamie Foxx playing those kinds of roles, and it's so unbelievable. He was such an amazing casting choice.
So incredible. And I love, it's often we hear these stories again and again where these performers, these great, great actors really go the extra mile to like make the performance feel authentic. And just the story of like him gluing his eyes shut for the performance, which I think Taylor encouraged, but obviously Jamie was really willing to go there, obviously heightened his senses in other ways and really allowed him to execute on that performance in a way he probably otherwise couldn't have. And so I always love hearing those details.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable to think, I mean, how much he had to go through to really embody that, but it really came through in the performance and feels so earnest and so, I mean, if you watch any videos of Ray actually performing, it feels exactly like him. It was just so well done.
And I love Taylor's decision to use Ray Charles's actual recordings. I thought that was kind of amazing because you really do remember what a genius he was and what a sort of extraordinary experimenter he was. And he really pushed limits. And I loved watching that again. I was reminded of what a good movie it was. And also how hard it was for Taylor to get that film made. I mean, it took years and years and years.
It's always hard to tell stories about real people. And I think especially when those real people are incredibly complicated, I think what makes this movie so special is that because Ray was a really complicated person, and I think he allowed that to come through in the story, it really worked as a movie, which does not always happen.
It's like sometimes you have those people looking over your shoulder and so you're not able to tell the truth. Yeah. I think that inhibits a lot of people from actually doing biopics because they can't be honest. And I love that this movie did feel like it it was a rendering of him that felt accurate and sort of showed the warts. And I really love that. And I think that's what made the movie work in the end. Cheers to you, Taylor Hackford. Thank you for coming on. He's a great friend of the pod. All right, Vanessa, do the wrap up.
All right, Daniela.
Try it out. I don't know.
Yeah, I got to try it out. Throw it in there. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Hollywood Gold. We also have a TikTok where we post our amazing clips of the episodes.
We have about 14 followers on TikTok, guys, so don't be afraid.
We need to grow those followers. Buy our merch. You can go on staygoldfeatures.com and there's a merch tab, and we have some amazing sweatshirts, amazing t-shirts with really cool graphics on them, and you can be a true fan of the pod. So thank you for listening.
I just want to note that I was driving down the street the other day and I saw someone wearing a Stay Gold sweatshirt, like our Stay Gold sweatshirt.
Not one you gave to someone?
It was... Okay, it was someone I gave it to, but still, it was out in the wild, and I was like so incredibly thrilled.
No, it's amazing. We're getting some really good orders, and I mean, I have one, and I wear it all the time, and it's so comfy and
Do
great,
people stop you on the street and ask you where you got it?
Like, what is this Hollywood Gold?
All right, guys, we love you so much, and don't forget.
Stay gold.
Yeah, there you go. Stay gold.
I was like, what am I supposed to say?